Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome to another session with TransPerfect, where we're going to explore another career. And we're excited to be jumping on board and really talking about this subject. Today, we have two of our friends from TransPerfect, who I'm going to let them introduce themselves very shortly. They'll walk you through a couple of slides to give you kind of a background of one, the position or the industry, and then two, a little bit about TransPerfect. Obviously, for those of you who are tuning in as a regular audience member, you know who TransPerfect is. But for those of you who haven't had the pleasure, you'll get to hear a little bit more. And this is part of our series of career exploration, where we just dive in a little bit deeper into what careers of today look like and what skills students like yourselves should be focusing on at the moment. So with that being said, I'm going to turn it over to Francesca, who's going to introduce herself, and then we'll get started.
Awesome, thank you. Hi, everyone. I'm Francesca, and this is Dylan. We're from TransPerfect Translations. TransPerfect is a translation company, but we also do a lot more. We have media work, we have interpretation, what else? Legal services. We have a whole bunch of different sectors of work that the company handles, which we will get into a little bit more throughout our presentation. We're both on the technology solutions team. I guess we can get our presentation started. I am a project manager on the tech solutions team, and Dylan is an engineer, as we have here. No. Okay. Okay. So I will dive into basically how we got here, how I got here at least. Actually, growing up, my education and career path was, I grew up, I wanted to be a teacher. The only thing I've ever wanted to do. In high school, I decided I wanted to be an Italian teacher. Languages, loved them. Italian was my thing. I was like the only one in the high school who even liked Italian, so I was going to be the Italian teacher. College, still Italian teacher, got 2 degrees in it, did the whole thing. After college, I'm not a teacher. I don't do anything particularly with Italian. I am here. I have been here since college. So my TPT journey, or my TransPerfect journey, has been I started a college internship going into my senior year of college. I was in a 5-year program, so I interned here for a year and a half, or like 2 years, while I was finishing college. And then I came back full time in 2017, and I started out from that internship kind of becoming a full-time project manager in production, which is not tech solutions, it's a separate department. And then I, throughout that time, became a team lead in production. And then in 2021, I did change to technology solutions, project manager, but in a little bit different of a role. So some of my day-to-day tasks now as a technology solutions project manager are troubleshooting, kind of support things with our technology for both the production, which is what I was previously doing, and also for external vendors, so like our linguists or any of our testers, or sometimes even clients. A big part of my job as well is efficiency improvement. So because I came from production, I had kind of a grasp of what they were doing, and now that I changed the tech team and I know more about our technology, I can kind of fuse those together and see how can we help our production teams to use our technology to become more efficient. Technology integrations, kind of off of that, we have so many different platforms and tools and everything like that. So I've learned more about integrations and how kind of different programs and platforms interact with each other, especially when things go wrong. You learn a lot when things go wrong and integrations break. And then with those integrations. A lot of them are client integrations. So client strategy is like, what's the best way that we can use our technology to meet the client's needs? If there's one thing I've learned, is that every client has something different that they need. So we really got to like see, you know, what are their needs and how can we cater to them, and how can we use our technology in different ways to meet what they need to do. Product development, so working with developers on developing the products themselves, or like the programs or tools or anything like that. There's a lot that goes into it, and because we have so many different tools and platforms and everything, there's a lot of different needs that, you know, to be able to integrate to platforms or to fix something that doesn't work with something. So working with developers a lot on what's going wrong or what improvements we need, what can be made more efficient. So they all kind of tie together. And then with those updates that we make, testing and validation of either a new product or updates to a product or bug fixes or anything like that. So, you know, this is stuff that you might see in any products that you use daily, like Google, Gmail. When Instagram servers go down, that's a big deal. Our servers go down too sometimes, also big, not as big as Instagram maybe, but yeah, it does. We do need to fix those things as they go down, and just like improvements that you see on Instagram as well. I might be dating myself, maybe TikTok. So cool. Improvements that you see with any of those tools as well. We kind of do similar things, just obviously for our products instead. Just some quick examples. The troubleshooting with vendors that I mentioned. One example is when their password either changes or they can't log in. This is something that I have done before, especially for my mom. If you know her password isn't working, her login isn't working, you're kind of like reaching out to support and like, hey, I need help, I can't log in. And so there's a lot of times that we get stuff from our vendors or linguists and stuff like that about helping them with, you know, accessing whatever platforms they need to. And then efficiency improvements, like I was mentioning before, this is a very detailed list, but these are just some of the things that I work with the production team. So monthly billing. So instead of every single job working with linguists, you know, we're paying them individually. We kind of want to group that and just send them one per month. So that's something that we're using to increase the efficiency for production and also for the vendors as well. Analyzing workflows, so seeing what processes that the production team is using, what technology can we incorporate instead, and how can we maybe cut some steps out that aren't necessary. Anything to kind of make things smoother, faster, and especially less error prone, because there are a lot of little things here and there. So we want to kind of take out any room for error if we can. So that's part of kind of analyzing some workflows. Macros, something Dylan and his team work on a lot. So if I'm working with a production team and we see something that the production team keeps doing over and over and over again, we might go to Dylan's team and say, hey, can you make a macro for us? So they can just press a button and it does whatever they do, magic, and replace that manual project manager step with something automated. And then the last one, which is very specific to what we do, is a translation memory. Translation memory is how we keep things that we've already translated and reuse them again in the future, so we don't have to duplicate work. Also keep consistency. So a translation memory strategy, like I was saying before about client strategy, is a very big thing that we work on a lot to make sure that, again, quality is of the utmost importance. So keeping that consistency and keeping quality up, as well as, you know, using the leverage of past work, so people aren't just repeatedly doing the same thing over and over again. So that is my project manager explanation. Manny, I saw you unmute at some point. Do you have a question?
Well, I have so many questions, and as you all know, I like to ask them. Can you walk us through a little bit? I know that was obviously you always wanted to be in Italian and be a teacher. What was that shift like? And then when you got that college internship, was that part of that kind of like that shift? You're like, oh, maybe this is something I would want to do.
Absolutely. I always, part of the whole, like, I'm going to be a teacher thing was because I swore I could never sit at a desk all day and be on a computer all day. I don't know where I came up with that because my dad always worked for computers, so I grew up with them. But I had that belief in my head that I couldn't do that. And then I kind of just did this internship because, it was semi-related. It's about languages and stuff. And my friend had actually seen TransPerfect at one of her college fairs. I just applied, I did it for the summer. Then I did it actually. And I was like, oh, I actually really like this. Project managing the whole organization thing and keeping things on track and making sure things get done is actually something that it's kind of what a teacher does too, but it's something that my strengths were. So I enjoyed it because I was good at it. So yeah, after having that experience, being like, oh, I actually really enjoy this and I can sit at a computer, that kind of changed my mind. And I didn't even really want to finish my degrees, but I did. Went through that, but then after kind of finishing that, I was like, I don't even really want to teach anymore. So that is how that came about.
That's awesome. Well, you teach in other ways now, right?
Sure, that is true. Yeah, I do teach some people.
So in terms of that shift for you, I'm curious because you've already had 3 different roles within TransPerfect. What are some of the skills at CFES? We work on 6 skills that we have coined the essential skills. So this could be teamwork, networking, agility, perseverance. What skills do you feel like you've used the most, or you've retained the most as you're working up your roles? And this could be for you as well, Dylan.
That's a good question. I think agility has definitely been number one. Like I was saying before, like every different client has a different set of needs. So when you think you've got something figured out and you're like, I'm good to go, I got this, they're going to throw something else at you. So that's something that's definitely been huge in both my production role and this technology solutions role. And that's what kind of keeps it interesting too. If I was doing the same thing every day, it wouldn't have been as fun. So getting all those different experiences has definitely been helpful for me. And it also, because I got so many experiences in production coming to technology solutions, I was able to help. I'm like, because I'm working with teams now that I didn't work on before. So I'm learning new things even with them, and having, some various experiences in my old team, I'm able to help the new team now. So I think more so than knowing specific things about the life sciences clients that I was working on, now that I'm working on some more web work, it's not the fact that I knew life sciences versus web work. It's more like, oh, I've had a similar issue. How can we apply it to all these new teams as well?
Yeah, and I guess what I would say is teamwork has been the most important for me, because I'm a bit newer here. I'll get into my whole spiel on my trip to TransPerfect shortly. But I feel like teamwork has been like very important for me because I got the TPT right after school. And I never worked in translation before or anything like that. I had no experience. I was a computer science major by the end of my time in college. And so I had that experience, but there were so many things for me to learn. And like even now, teamwork is like the most important thing, where like you face so many different problems every day that just having a really supportive team has been really helpful for me.
That's great. Thank you for sharing that.
Anything else, or should we get into Dylan?
Yeah, let's jump right in.
All right. So now I get to go through how I got here.
Yeah.
So yeah, my path is a little bit different from Francesca's. When I was growing up, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was like, oh, architects are really cool. I'll be an architect. And then in high school, I was like, actually, I want to be a psychologist. So kind of jumping around a lot. And we got to college. I want to be a software engineer. So I definitely had a pretty interesting path. I kind of landed on technology in general when I got here to TPT. My title here is a localization engineer. It is different than software engineer. We do all kinds of different things. We troubleshoot like Francesca would, and just work with like all of our tools and help production solve all the kinds of problems they need, which I'll go into more a bit later as well. So yeah, my TPT journey is a little bit shorter. I graduated college in 2020, right into COVID, lots of fun. And so I kind of had that year to look around and find things that I'm interested in. And I joined TPT in June of 2021. Throughout my time here, I've been here for 2 years about. I trained with a team, worked on all kinds of different projects, and went from junior localization engineer to localization engineer, which has been quite the ride for 2 years. Yeah, these are just some of my day-to-day tasks. Troubleshooting support to production teams, which is a bit of a different kind of support than Francesca, where like sometimes they'll get us all these different kinds of file types that they might not be familiar with, that we'll have to like help strategize on how to work with them, put into like a translatable format. So like we work with like all kinds of like files, like web files, like HTML, XML, like all different kinds of files like that. Working directly with sales and production teams, which is going off of the previous thing. We not only like help troubleshoot, but create workflows for them as well. And in some cases, we have to, I guess, work on the files ourselves just because they might be a little bit too complex. And those are definitely the most interesting parts of the job. It's like new problems every day. Creating scripts and tools to help automate production workflows. And this encompasses anything from like simpler scripts and like a tool known as AutoHotkey, where you can write small scripts to do things with your keyboard, to all the way up to like Java tools and Python tools through like coding scripts and other programs. Setting up ideal workflows for clients to follow. So in some cases, we need to basically set up workflows in the same way that Francesca would, but we need to create parsers, which extracts the translatable content out of a file, and basically sets it up for linguists to translate easily, which I'll show an example of too in a bit. Collaborating with other engineers to solve daily problems. Like I was saying before, this is my absolute favorite part, working with the team. I definitely wouldn't be where I am right now without my team. Teamwork is so important here, and it's really great. And teaching production and new engineers the ins and outs of our tools. An example of this is recently, I've actually started training some new engineers myself, even though I've only been here for 2 years. So it's been a lot of fun, really exciting. And yeah, I'll go on to some, this is for both of us actually.
Yeah.
So.
Well, Dylan, before you go on to that, I do have some
Sure.
questions. So how did you have a similar path in terms of like having an internship while you were in college, or how did you stumble upon TransPerfect?
So the way that I stumbled upon TransPerfect was actually really interesting. I didn't have an internship in college. Basically, I graduated and they kind of had like some since COVID was like pretty rough for the job market right out of college. They had a lot of like career fairs through Fordham is where I went to school. And so at one of those fairs, I met my recruiter and I really enjoyed the experience I had talking to her. And from there, like the whole interview process, I was like, oh, wow, this place is like really cool. It's kind of where I want to be right now. It's just like, yeah, I guess that's pretty much it. Throughout college, throughout my first 2 years, I pretty much had no idea what I wanted to do. So it's definitely okay to not be certain of what you want to do at first. But yeah, I guess I really had no idea I'd end up here at TPT, and I'm loving it. So it's great.
Well, I'm sensing a trend, right? And I think as some of our students are listening in, those take advantage of those opportunities when companies are coming in. Obviously, many of our students are in high school still, and we know there's opportunities even at the high school level. We work with some companies who are hiring students for internships while in high school, but as they're jumping into the college, just browse. You never know what you might find. And it's not like, putting the pressure on yourself to like, oh, you got to find a job. You're just looking for opportunities and you might be surprised of what's out there, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. So I'll get into some, what's up? Oh, yeah. So I'll get into some examples of some of the things that I do as well, some more specific examples. So before I mentioned developing tools. So like I was kind of saying, this ranges from anything to VBA macros, which is like basically in Microsoft Word or Excel, you can set up these little tools where you just have to click and it can do all kinds of operations from like copy and pasting, like everything from this row into this row or column, and like all other kinds of complex, I guess, things you could do on them. For example, just an example, sometimes we need to work in a Word file where we have English and then another language right underneath it. So we actually have a macro that can run all of that for us without having to manually do that, which would take a really long time. So some of these macros are simple in execution, but save so much time. Same with the other tools.
I use that one a lot.
Yeah. And another thing is assisting production. So I copy and pasted some examples. Some of them are pretty detailed, but like the first example here is just an example of setting up a workflow where, in this case, this client was using this parser to work with their files for years, as the PM said. But then they were switching over to a new format. So we needed to kind of help look at these new files, make sure like nothing's too different about them, or if there is, we can make some changes to adjust to that, and kind of set up this workflow with them and make sure everything's in order so nothing gets too messed up. The second one is not only do we create new tools, but we also help update existing tools. So the second one, Free Commander, is pretty much just a existing tool that lets you like view your folders on your computer. So they basically wanted to know if we could make one of our existing tools compatible with that. So that was an interesting thing to work on. So like this first example right here at the top is for parsing, and the second one is coding through AutoHotkey, like I mentioned, which is just like a scripting language you can use. It's not like Python or Java. It's a little bit simpler, I would say. It's interesting though. I just learned about it. I'm always learning new things here too, is another thing that I want to say. And I feel like that's one of the best things aside from teamwork. And this last example is kind of an example of something we would get as a request for a VBA macro, where they want us to extract all of the highlighted text. So like something like that we can use. Normally you could do like, oh, like I want to take this highlighted text and this highlighted text, but we can automate that through our tools, which is one of the, I'd say, more rewarding parts of what I do as well. Because it's not just the daily tasks, it's like all the stuff outside of that as well, which is really rewarding. And I have one more set of examples, just parsing files. Kind of added some screenshots to maybe make a little bit more sense of it as well, because parsing is like a little hard to define in different settings. So like, here's an example. We use our internal tools alongside other tools like regular expressions, XPath, and other things to kind of take out translatable content of a file and use that for the linguist to look at. So as an example, here in the first screenshot, you can kind of see these like, apology if it's too small, but you can see these blue highlighted bits of HTML code and some other kind of coding. This top thing here is a regex pattern, which you don't need to worry about, but basically, this is an example of something we would use in a parser to kind of take out this text. So it's not viewed in translation, which is an example shown below. They're taking out as tags. So like here, you'll see learn more, and it ignores all of the coding that we don't want anybody to touch or break or anything. So, yeah. Did you want to go back to the other slides?
Where you go back to the slide on that example, is it anybody, like any project manager can use that tool? That I'm assuming this is like just an internal.
Oh, so this screenshot here is just
Yeah.
So this is actually like a regex testing website. So regex is an existing thing outside of like our company. It's basically just like patterns you can use to find certain like patterns in text. So like here I look for a pattern that's anything in between these less than and greater than signs and anything between these percentage signs. That is basically what we use in conjunction with our internal tools. So we use these patterns in our tools to pull out different bits of text to then be used in like a translatable format on like our CAT tools like WordFast.
To clarify that further for us non-coders in the building, the top screenshot is it's like a file that a client would send us. And then what they do is pull out the text that actually needs to be translated. And then we get something that looks like the bottom screenshot, so that as a project manager, you are just looking at text. As a linguist, you're just looking at text and just translating what actually needs to be translated. We do that, and then we send it back to them essentially to put it back in that client format that has all that coding, so they can put it on their website or whatever format they need it in.
That's awesome. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So you guys just focus exactly on what you need to do. That way there's massive efficiency.
Right.
Exactly. It's all about automation.
Yeah.
Can you go back to the other slides?
So just some highlights that we have, even though we technically have different roles, we are on the same tech team together, and we're able to kind of experience these things in different ways, but in the same manner. So in the tech team, previously I was in production and I worked on a lot of life sciences, and I thought I was working on a lot of different things in life sciences. Turns out it's all very similar compared to everything else we do. So I've been able to explore a lot of different parts of the company. I've learned a lot of different materials that we work on, a lot of different tools that we have, just all this different like coding stuff and web work and the integrations that I was mentioning before. So I've really gotten to see just so many different things, and I still learn so many different things even now after 8 years. So there is a lot of things that go on.
Yeah, and really quick on that, as like the technology team, we have like a lot of opportunities to just work directly with all the other teams and meet them and connect. And recently I connected with our gaming team too, as an example, which is really cool to just like be able to like not only delve into like your interests of like technology, but like also like talk to these other production teams and work with them and see how you can help with their processes, and like especially like dive into like your own interests as well. It's really cool.
That is really cool. And we're going to do a session next month, early next month, on gaming at TransPerfect.
That's exciting.
Yeah.
I have talked extensively about software and integrations already. Do you have anything to add?
I don't think so. I feel like I went pretty in depth a little bit.
It's a highlight though, so that's why we talk about it.
It is a highlight. And yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about as well, with like all these different like working in VBA or like Python and Java and like all different kinds of tools. It's just like flexibility on what you can work on. So like, just as an example, like throughout my day, we use I guess a project tracking software called Jira, which like lets us like look at all these different requests from production, like, oh, can you help us prep these files for translation, or like sales, like, oh, can you help us quote these files, like get a word count on them or something like that. So like I'll do that for a bit of my day, but then outside of that, we have like a lot of freedom in what side projects we work on, which is kind of like those tools, like developing those tools. So like if I don't want to work in Python, I don't have to technically, I can work on something else. Like if I like Java more, I can do a Java tool. So that's like pretty flexible, I would say.
Yeah, I think because we get so many different requests, we can kind of, not that we can pick and choose everything. Sometimes, you know, something just needs to get done. But there is flexibility just because there's so much to choose from, and I can say like, oh, I really like working on this. It was one of the integrations. I was like, I like working on this. No one else wanted to do it, so I got it. So yeah, there definitely is flexibility. If there's something I really, really just don't like, I'm sure there's someone else on the team who likes it better than me.
And even within like individual problems, there's flexibility. Like a certain tool that is requested by production could be tackled in so many different ways and so many different means. Like kind of like I was saying, if I don't want to work in Python, like I can build a tool in Java instead or something like that. There's just like almost, it feels like infinite possibilities with what we can do. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really key because, you know, folks don't get that flexibility in many other jobs where it's not to say it's very rigid, but it kind of is, right?
Yeah.
Or it could be, I guess.
Yeah, it's all relative too, because I didn't think my last role was rigid, and it wasn't that rigid, but there's even more flexibility now. So depends what you like too. Some people like structure and rules, and we had within our teams, like we had teams that like, if you like rules, work on this team because you'll be very good. There's a lot of rules. If you like more flexibility, work on this because we don't really have rules and we need to create them, or we need to be able to do anything at any given time. So we kind of, even within different departments, like we have different roles, because some people like don't want, or I don't know, not good at, don't enjoy, you know, having to like figure things out all the time. And that's, some days I don't either. So those are the days that I'm like, these are the tasks that I have to do, and they're kind of repetitive, but like that's what my day's like today. So even day to day could be, you know, changing on what your day's going like and what the team needs and what the clients need and all that kind of stuff.
100%.
So this is kind of related to what we were talking about with you, Manny. We just had some takeaways from our educational path so far. Try everything, like you had mentioned before. Obviously, we both kind of have veered different ways from what we thought we were going to do. One thing that I thought was, even looking back now, for college, you have to take those kind of general education classes, and a lot of people think they're a waste of time because they have, you know, their career path planned already. I had mine too. Turns out there's a lot of other things I wish I did. I really wish I did software engineering, at least like a class or two. The kind of how I got into the tech side is my best friend was like, you would actually love coding. You love puzzles, you love games. Like this is coding's kind of like a puzzle. So I took a class online afterwards, but in retrospect, I wish I had taken some classes in college too. So gen eds are not a waste of time. If there's opportunities, say yes to them. Try it at least once. If you really don't like it, it's not for you, that's fine. But you never know what you're gonna like. And a lot, like I didn't have STEM classes yet when I was in high school. I think they have more now, but I never was really exposed to that.
Yeah.
So I'm sure there's things that other people may not be exposed to now. If you have the opportunity later, just try it.
Yeah, going off of that, definitely don't be afraid to take chances. Pretty much everyone makes mistakes constantly, and all we can do is grow from them. I know I've made my fair share of mistakes in daily work, forgetting to do one little thing, something like that. But yeah, I mean, like, I wouldn't call my path through college a mistake at all. I started in psychology, went to music, went to computer science,
You left
tried to
music
double
out of your
major.
presentation.
I did leave music out, but yeah. I don't, I wouldn't call those mistakes, but it's like definitely like Francesca was kind of saying, try everything once. And like, if you're not super into something, like I didn't end up being into psychology, I wouldn't have called that a waste of time at all. Like, it's kind of trying to find what you want to do, like find your path.
And as we both did, don't be afraid to change paths. It's something that I think obviously it's never too late to change paths, but you don't want to say, like, if I had stuck with Italian teaching because that was what I said my whole life I was going to do, I'd be 8 years into teaching and probably really, really not like it. And then change, I would have changed eventually, whether it was 2 years later or 5 years later, or 10 years later. If it's something that, like, you truly want to do something different, it's fine. And maybe you realize that later down anyway, but there's always opportunities to kind of do what you want or find something new if, what you've planned on doesn't work out or you don't want to do it. And I had realized that, luckily, that I didn't want to teach rather than go through all of that just to change my mind anyway.
Yeah, figuring things out takes time. Took me halfway through college to figure out what I wanted to do.
And that is our presentation.
Yeah, that is, I mean, I'm glad you closed with this, because a lot of our students sometimes they feel so adamant that they got to follow a certain path, and then you got another half who really doesn't know. In reality, I mean, it takes time. You just got to try different things, like as you all mentioned, and you're going to find something that speaks to you at the moment. It might not necessarily be where you might end up being. We all know that no longer people are going into jobs and staying there for 30, 40 years. It's what are the things within particular jobs that might be appealing to you today that might be setting you up for great success later on. And those are those skills that that are very transferable.
Yeah, there's nothing I haven't learned that I have learned in any other role that hasn't somehow transformed into, or kind of transferred into, a skill I could use in any other role.
Yeah, definitely. All experience is valuable experience for sure.
Yeah. Well, Francesca, Dylan, thank you so much for enlightening us on the opportunities and your path, which is very insightful, and we really appreciate you taking the time to chat with us. And we look forward to connecting with you in the future again.
Absolutely. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you.
All righty. Well, until next time.
Bye, everyone.
Bye, guys.